Have you ever wondered what would happen if one day you found yourself struggling with the simple routines of daily life? Would you immediately think of a nursing home as your only option? Or would you pause and ask if there might be another way? Aging is something we all must face, but how we choose to walk through it is deeply personal and far more flexible than many people realize. Today, I invite you to journey with me through 6 heartfelt stories, real glimpses into the lives of older adults who, when confronted with the loss of some independence, chose to write a different ending. From a spirited traveler in his 90s to a grandmother who embraced technology to stay connected, each story holds a quiet but powerful lesson about resilience, creativity, and the endless possibilities that still exist at every stage of life. If you've ever wondered whether there's more to aging than just being taken care of, this video is for you. Stay with me, because the most beautiful chapters are often the ones we choose to write for ourselves. Number 1, the independent grandpa. Meet Mr. Thomas, an 86-year-old with silver hair, steady hands, and a spirit that refuses to be tamed by time. For decades, Thomas was known in his community as the man who could fix anything: a broken fence, a sick tree, a neighbor's aching heart. His days were stitched together with simple, steadfast joys: an early morning stroll to greet the sun, a quiet moment tending to his roses, afternoons spent reading novels that whisked him away to distant lands. But life, as it always does, began to shift. His knees grew a bit stiffer, his steps a bit slower, and his children, concerned and full of love, suggested that he consider moving into a nursing home. They meant well, of course. They worried about him falling, about loneliness creeping into his days like an unwelcome shadow. But Thomas knew something deep in his bones. Home was more than just 4 walls. It was his independence, his identity, the gentle rhythm of days he had built for himself over a lifetime. He wasn't ready to trade morning greetings from familiar neighbors or the comfort of his worn kitchen chair for sterile hallways and scheduled activities. "I know my limits," he told his daughter one evening, a twinkle still alive in his tired eyes. "But I also know what keeps me alive inside." Instead of surrendering his life to a facility, Thomas made a different choice. With a bit of help, a kind home care nurse who visited twice a week, a grandson who stopped by to mow the lawn, and a neighbor who brought him fresh bread on Sundays, he continued living on his own terms. He wasn't alone. He was held up by a quiet, powerful network of love and respect, one that allowed him to stay rooted where his heart had always been. Thomas's story reminds us of something essential. Growing older doesn't mean we must immediately relinquish the life we've built. Independence is a fuel, a vital energy source that carries more than just the ability to move around. It nourishes dignity, pride, and a sense of purpose. It's true, aging brings challenges, but it doesn't mean you must hand over your autonomy the moment a hurdle appears. Sometimes, with creativity, family support, and a willingness to adapt, a vibrant life at home is still very much possible. You don't have to rush into a nursing home simply because the calendar pages keep turning. Pause. Reflect. Know that with a little bit of planning, whether it's setting up emergency call buttons, hiring part-time help, modifying your living space, or leaning more on friends and family, you can continue living in the environment that nurtures your soul. Thomas teaches us that aging is not about surrendering. It's about redefining how we live and thrive, even when the world starts nudging us toward caution. It's about holding on to the joys that truly matter: a warm coffee in your own kitchen, a familiar sunset from your porch, the feeling of freedom when you choose how your day unfolds. No matter your age, you are still the author of your story. Sometimes, you just need a little extra help turning the pages, not someone else writing the ending for you. Number 2, the surprising move of a retired teacher. Let me tell you about Mrs. Ellen Montgomery, a retired school teacher with soft silver hair and a spark in her eye that no number of years could ever dim. After dedicating 4 decades of her life to nurturing young minds, Ellen found herself facing a crossroads many seniors know all too well. Should she stay in the same old house, burdened by memories and empty rooms, or should she move into a nursing facility, as her children gently suggested? At first, the thought of leaving the home she had built seemed unthinkable, but deep down, Ellen knew she wanted something more, not less, from this next chapter of her life. Instead of retreating into quiet resignation, Ellen made a choice that surprised everyone. She packed her favorite books, her knitting needles, and her boundless spirit and moved to a small but vibrant community designed for independent retirees. It wasn't a nursing home with endless hallways and rigid schedules. It was a lively village where laughter echoed from the gardens and old friendships bloomed like spring flowers. Her children worried at first, questioning why she would leave the comfort of her familiar neighborhood for an unknown place. Wasn't it safer to stay put? Wasn't it wiser to choose the cautious road? But life, as Ellen proved, isn't meant to be lived carefully tucked away. Within a few short months, she was thriving in ways she hadn't felt in years. She joined a morning walking group, picked up watercolor painting, and, most dear to her heart, started a knitting club where she once again became a beloved teacher, surrounded by people who understood her, who shared her passions and encouraged her curiosity. Ellen found herself not fading into the background, but stepping fully into a new season of joy. Her story is a gentle reminder that sometimes the best way to take care of ourselves as we age isn't to retreat in fear, but to reach outward, to seek out connection, creativity, and contribution. Aging doesn't mean shrinking your life. It means reshaping it with the wisdom and freedom you've earned. Ellen shows us that finding the right community can breathe life into our days, renew our sense of purpose, and remind us that there is still so much more to give, to learn, and to love. You see, settling into a nursing home out of fear or pressure isn't the only path. There are places, vibrant little corners of the world, filled with kindred spirits, shared laughter, and opportunities to keep growing. No matter how many candles are on your birthday cake, it takes courage to choose something new. It takes faith to believe that the best memories might still be waiting around the next corner. But as Ellen would tell you with a twinkle in her eye, it's a risk worth taking. So, if you ever find yourself wondering whether it's too late to begin again, remember Mrs. Montgomery's story. It's never too late. Sometimes, all it takes is one bold step to transform the rest of your journey into the most beautiful chapter yet. Number 3, the adventurer in his 90s. Let me introduce you to Mr. Walter Bennett, a spirited 91-year-old who has become something of a legend in his small town. Not because he chose to live quietly in the twilight of his life, but because he refused to let the number of candles on his birthday cake define his spirit. While many of his peers settled into familiar routines and armchairs, Walter decided he wasn't done exploring the world, not even close. Rather than retreating into a life of sameness, Walter and his daughter, Emily, made a bold decision they would travel the world together, one memory at a time. But they didn't take the easy path. No luxury cruise ships, no sterile tour buses. Instead, they stayed in cozy apartments tucked into bustling Parisian neighborhoods, in tiny hillside inns overlooking the Italian countryside, in quiet villages where the only sound at night was the hum of cicadas. They walked ancient streets, stumbled through conversations with locals, tasted unfamiliar foods, and marveled at sunsets in places Walter had once only dreamed about. This wasn't about ticking boxes on a bucket list. It was about living, fully, deeply, intentionally. Walter wasn't chasing photographs or souvenirs. He was collecting something much more precious: stories, laughter, and a sense of wonder that seemed to grow stronger with each passing year. Some days his knees ached, and some nights he needed a little extra rest. But never once did he see these things as a reason to stop. They were simply part of the journey, small prices to pay for the gift of being alive in the wide, beautiful world. Walter's story is a powerful reminder. Age is not a closed door. It's not a chain that binds you to stillness. It's an invitation to live with the freedom that youth often rushes past and the wisdom that only time can give. At 91, Walter discovered a truth many people never realize. Even in their younger years, adventure is not about daring feats or distant lands alone. It's about a willingness to remain open, curious, and brave. No matter what your birth certificate says, maybe for you, adventure isn't boarding a plane to another continent. Maybe it's as simple and as profound as trying something new in your own town, picking up a long-forgotten hobby, visiting old friends, or even learning a new language just because you can. Adventure is a mindset, not a destination. Walter shows us that life doesn't shrink with age. It expands if you let it. The later years don't have to be a slow winding down. They can be the beginning of a new kind of journey, one marked not by speed, but by richness, meaning, and discovery. So, if you find yourself wondering whether it's too late for something you've always dreamed of, whether it's traveling, painting, singing, or simply seeing life from a new angle, think of Walter. Think of the quiet mornings he spent sipping espresso on a balcony in Rome, the laughter he shared with Emily as they got lost in the alleyways of old Spanish towns, the tears he wiped away at the beauty of a Greek sunset. It's never too late. As long as there's breath in your lungs and a spark in your heart, there are still adventures waiting for you. You just have to take that first step. Number 4, the tech-savvy grandma. Let me introduce you to Mrs. Margaret Ellis, an extraordinary woman who, at 84 years old, proved that true independence isn't about holding on to the past. It's about embracing the possibilities of today. Margaret had always lived a full life. She raised a family, taught music lessons from her cozy living room, and baked pies so good that neighbors would find any excuse to visit. But when time began to slow her steps and everyday tasks became a little harder, she faced a decision many older adults know all too well. Should she move into a nursing home or find another way to stay in the place she loved? Margaret made her choice with quiet determination. She would stay right where she was, but she also knew she couldn't do it alone. Instead of resisting the changes around her, she turned to something many people her age view with hesitation: technology. With the gentle guidance of her grandchildren, she learned to use a smartphone, a tablet, and even a few smart home devices. Slowly but surely, her house transformed into a place where independence wasn't lost. It was empowered. With a few simple voice commands, Margaret could turn on the lights without getting up, lock her doors at night, adjust the thermostat when the winter chill crept in, or even ask her smart assistant to remind her when it was time to take her medicine. But the real magic was how technology kept her heart connected to the people she loved most. Every evening, she would video chat with her daughter across the country, watch her great-grandchildren show off their latest drawings, and even join Sunday family game nights, all from the comfort of her favorite armchair, tea in hand, laughter echoing through the screen. It wasn't just about convenience. It was about staying woven into the fabric of family life, even when distance or physical limitations could have pulled her away. Margaret wasn't just using technology, she was using it to stay alive to the world around her, to remain part of the stories unfolding beyond her doorstep. Her story is a beautiful reminder that while our bodies may change with age, our capacity for connection, joy, and independence never has to. Sometimes, the very tools that seem foreign or intimidating at first can become bridges to loved ones, to passions old and new, to a life that continues to grow and evolve. Margaret shows us that embracing new tools doesn't mean letting go of who you are. It means protecting your ability to live life on your terms. It means finding new ways to nurture old dreams. It means staying present, engaged, and vibrant, no matter how many birthdays you celebrate. So if you ever feel hesitant about learning something new, remember Mrs. Ellis's gentle smile as she called out, "Alexa, play my favorite song," and filled her house with music once again. Sometimes, the key to holding on to your independence isn't by resisting change, it's by reaching out, learning, and letting it lift you into a new season of life, where anything is still possible. Number 5, the gardener who never stopped growing. Let me tell you about Mr. Harold Whitman, a man whose hands carried the scent of soil and sunlight, even as the years added lines to his face and slowed his steps. For most of his life, Harold's garden was more than a hobby. It was his sanctuary, stretching across nearly half an acre. His land bloomed with vibrant roses, towering tomatoes, whispering fruit trees, and rows of tender herbs. It was a place where every seed planted felt like a promise of tomorrow. But as Harold approached his 79th birthday, something undeniable began to happen. His body, once so strong and eager, started to resist the long hours spent digging, bending, lifting. Tasks that had once brought him joy now left him exhausted, and small injuries healed slower than before. His children grew concerned, gently suggesting that it might be time to give up the garden, or even consider moving somewhere where life could be easier, safer. Harold heard their worries. He understood the reality, but he also knew something they didn't, that the garden wasn't just a pastime. It was a part of who he was, and he wasn't ready to let go of that part of himself. Instead of surrendering, Harold chose to adapt. He began the careful, loving work of downsizing. Not his dreams, but the scale on which he pursued them. He carved out a smaller space near his kitchen window, turning it into a jewel box of greenery. He chose hardy perennials that asked little but gave much. He traded his sprawling vegetable rows for a few raised beds that he could tend while seated. His orchard became two beloved apple trees, standing like old friends. The beauty of Harold's new garden wasn't in its size, but in its simplicity. With fewer plants to tend, he found more time to savor each moment. The delicate unfurling of a rosebud, the earthy scent after a rain, the warm kiss of sunlight on his shoulders. He discovered that joy didn't come from the grandness of his work, but from the connection he maintained to the earth, to life itself. When his family visited and saw what he had created, they were astonished. Harold wasn't just managing, he was flourishing. The sparkle in his eyes, the pride in his voice, the steady strength in his spirit told them all they needed to know. This small garden, tended with wisdom and heart, was giving him exactly what he needed. Harold's story is a tender reminder that growing older doesn't mean giving up what we love. It means finding new ways to nurture it. It teaches us that letting go of scale doesn't mean letting go of passion. Sometimes, the most beautiful chapters of our lives aren't written in grand, sweeping gestures, but in quieter, more intentional ones. So whether it's gardening, painting, crafting, or anything else that makes your heart beat a little faster, remember, Harold, you don't have to abandon the things that bring you joy. You just might have to shape them differently, hold them closer, and let them grow with you into this next beautiful season of life. Number 6, the family legacy. Let me tell you about Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, an 84-year-old woman whose heart was stitched into every corner of the house she called home. For over 5 decades, Eleanor had lived within those familiar walls, a place where her children had taken their first steps, where birthdays were celebrated under the old oak tree in the backyard, and where countless Thanksgiving dinners had filled the rooms with laughter and the smell of homemade pie. As the years wore on and her health became more fragile, her children began to worry. They spoke gently about assisted living, about how a nursing home could offer her safety, company, and care. Their suggestions came from love, but Eleanor knew something deep in her soul. No matter how kind or well-appointed another place might be, it could never replace the life she had built within those walls. That house wasn't just shelter, it was memory, it was belonging, it was the heartbeat of her family's story. Instead of leaving it behind, Eleanor found a way to weave support into the life she had. She worked out a simple, beautiful arrangement. Her daughter would stop by every Saturday afternoon, arms full of groceries and fresh flowers. Her grandson, now a teenager with a driver's license, would swing by after school a few times a week to share a snack, fix a loose doorknob, or just sit and listen to her stories. Neighbors checked in too, dropping off homemade soups and helping her tend the garden she loved so dearly. It wasn't always easy. Some days were slower than others, but within the steady rhythm of these small, loving gestures, Eleanor thrived. She didn't just stay in her home, she continued to live in it, surrounded by the echoes of a life well spent and the living roots of a family that still grew and flourished because of the love she had poured into it for decades. Eleanor's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the best place for us isn't somewhere new or unfamiliar. It's right where our story first took root, where the walls remember our laughter, and the garden still blooms because once our hands planted its seeds. Aging doesn't have to mean letting go of the places that shaped us. It can mean finding new ways to stay connected, to be supported, while honoring the deep and quiet beauty of continuity. Staying home wasn't just about comfort for Eleanor. It was about preserving a legacy. It was about sitting at the same kitchen table where she once braided her daughter's hair before school, and now watching her great-grandson show her videos on a tablet. It was about feeling, even in the quiet moments, that she was still exactly where she belonged. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether the place you've spent your life still has a place for you, think of Eleanor Hayes. Sometimes, home doesn't just hold your memories, it holds your future, too. And there's something profoundly beautiful in knowing that your story can continue to unfold in the very place where it first began. As we've seen through these beautiful stories, aging is not the closing of a door, it's simply the opening of a different one. Growing older doesn't mean surrendering your joy, your independence, or your sense of purpose. With a little creativity, support, and courage, it's possible to continue living with dignity, meaning, and deep connection to the life you love. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If any of these stories touched your heart, or if you have a journey of your own you'd like to celebrate, I invite you to comment below with just 2 simple words, "Still growing." I'd love to hear from you. And if you found comfort or inspiration here, don't forget to like this video and gently tap subscribe. It's a small way to stay connected and to keep receiving more uplifting stories made just for you. Until we meet again, take care of your spirit, keep nurturing your dreams, and remember, the most beautiful seasons of life often bloom when we least expect them. I'll see you in the next video.